Good afternoon. My name is Bhavana Reddy, and I'm a practicing architect since 2013. And I've established my firm, Sri Suvarnaram Architects, in 2016 after pursuing my master's in architecture in the US. Today, I want to take you on a journey of forgotten forms in architecture. My research in architecture began with my master's thesis, which is to design a built environment for Indian education system. In simple terms, designing a school. Firstly, to design a space for a system of education, I've researched on the history of Indian education system, the changes it has undergone over a period of time, and the consequences that led to these changes. India's earliest formal education system was the Gurukul system, as we all know. It was purely residential, where the students used to live with the gurus and the family. The curriculum was not just limited to subjects like philosophy, literature, and warfare, but extended to learning life skills, moral values, spiritual development, making it purely holistic. There are no fees charged prior or during the course, but a Guru Dakshina would be offered as a gesture of respect, sometimes monetary and sometimes a task assigned by the teacher. Fast forward to our current education system, which was established during the British era by Thomas Babington Macaulay in 1835, completely replaced indigenous systems, not just by changing the curriculum, but also making English as the primary medium of language. And post independence, in 1947, the state governments were responsible for education in India. And later, from 1976, the education system was a shared department of both state and the central governments. So, when we think about education today, the classrooms, the languages, the systems we are familiar with, it's easy to forget that things weren't always the same. Long before modern universities or standardized curriculums, learning looked and felt very different. It was immersive, deeply rooted in community, and often intertwined with philosophy, science, and spirituality. One place that captures this beautifully and perhaps one of the most powerful forgotten forms of learning is Nalanda. Nalanda University, called as Nalanda Mahavihara now, was one of the first international universities that the world has ever seen. Currently located in Bihar, this ancient learning center was established in the 5th century CE by Kumaragupta I of the Gupta dynasty, where it used to house over 10,000 students and 2,000 teachers from all over the world. Later dynasties like the Pushyabutis and the Palas continued to support Nalanda, helping it flourish for over a period of 700 years. The curriculum was broad, which included subjects like Buddhism, Vedas, medicine, mathematics, logic, alchemy, astronomy, metaphysics, and so on. This kind of diverse student body and faculty attracted scholars from various parts of the world, like China to Sri Lanka, countries of the Middle East, and Southeast Asia. Nalanda's grandeur and scholarly achievements have been known worldwide through the writings of foreign scholars who visited this place and stayed there for a good period of time in its golden era. Chinese and Persian scholars of the early medieval period mention this ancient forgotten forms curriculum, infrastructure, and scholarly life by chronicling it in their travelogues. The decline of this great institution came around 12th century by the invasion of Bakhtiyar Khilji, who destroyed it by fire, burying its glory, which was an architectural marvel of the ancient learning world. The build form featured stupas, shrines, and viharas with extensive libraries that had over 9 million books, which were all burned down to ashes. Today, the site with ruins speaking the past glory of the forgotten form, is declared as a heritage site by UNESCO. The entire complex was spread over a much larger area, but what remains for preservation is now spread over an area of 23 hectares of land, which consists of remains of 11 viharas, 14 temples, and many more smaller shrines. The relics found during excavation dated back even to 3rd century BCE. As I walk down my memory lane, there is one instance that I keep coming back, that is visiting my village during summer vacation, which is 120 kilometers away from Hyderabad, along with my cousins, and our favorite pastime was to visit Phanigiri hill, which is a couple of kilometers away from my residence in the village. We used to visit Rama temple, built many centuries ago, which sits in the center of the hill that curves in the form of a snake. This Rama temple, along with two more Shiva temples of 11th century, located in Nalanda district, form a huge part of my childhood architectural memory. As kids, we were fascinated with the area surrounding the temple, which is a natural rock formation. We used to climb up the hill, which was entirely with dark grey rock. But when we reached the top of the hill, we used to rest at a place where there was a huge pile of hard soil on the top of the hill. I remember finding few pieces of small white rock scattered in the area with some design on it. And it made me think that it was a part of something big and it was broken. Surprisingly, many years later, the place was excavated by the State Archaeology Department. That unraveled a huge part of architectural history that stood in the place 2100 years ago, which was a Buddhist monastery. It is one of the important Buddhist monasteries strategically located on the hilltop on the ancient trade route connecting the west and the east coast of Deccan. During the course of excavation, 42 inscriptions in Brahmi font were recovered belonging to Shatavahana and Ikshvaku time periods ranging between 1st century and 3rd century CE. One inscription belonging to King Rudrapurusha reveals his 18th regnal year. His reign is significant because it marks the end of the Ikshvaku dynasty. The ancient habitation on the hilltop covers an area of 10 acres in extent, which was all well planned according to the land contours on the hilltop, having the Mahastupa, the water stupas, absidal Shaityagrihas, congregation halls, and viharas, all built in stone, mud, and lime mortar, well connected with staircases and corridors that were heavily ornamented with stone carvings. The latest excavation, which started in 2001 and lasted till 2007, that happened in a phase-wise manner, rediscovered this architectural marvel and unraveled to the world what was forgotten and buried in time for centuries. Excavations at Phanigiri unravel the art that prevailed during the 1st century through intricate stone carvings of architectural elements like Makarathoranas, columns, idols, panels, which are now displayed in the museum built near the site and inaugurated in 2023. Here, I would like to quote the famous architect Frank Lloyd Wright saying, "The mother art is architecture. Without an architecture of our own, we have no soul of our own civilization." Somewhere between the pages of history and the cracks in old walls, there are stories we have forgotten. Not just structures made of stone and brick, but entire ways of life, ancient philosophies, and systems of knowledge that once defined civilizations. Over time, many of these have faded, not because they have failed, but because we stopped looking back. Buried beneath modern skylines, hurried blueprints, and the race to build higher, faster, and newer, exist quiet fragments of the past waiting to be remembered. Coming to the present works of SSR architects, we are working on the restoration project of Rama Temple located in Amapalli, Shamshabad, along with other interior and architectural projects. So I happened to visit the State Archaeology Department to know the history and timeline of the project which we are working on. The department assigned us two archaeologists who visited our temple restoration project and examined its architectural features and gave a report that it belonged to 17th century. A small Shiva temple, which is in the same premises of the Rama temple, which we are restoring, was also visited by them. And the idols of the Shiva and Nandi in the temple were much older than the Rama temple. They belong to 13th century. In our conversation with the archaeologists who visited our project, we got to know that they were a part of the team who excavated the Phanigiri site as well, and gave us even more information regarding the surrounding sites that were excavated during the same time period when they excavated the Phanigiri site. One of them is the Chatushkoda Shiva temple complex at Jalalpur, 20 kilometers away from the Phanigiri. The two Nandi Vigrahas brought into light after excavation of this site were intricately sculpted and were intact when they were restored, but unfortunately they were destroyed by people without knowing their importance of what the art on the Vigrahas can speak about the civilization that prevailed at the point of time they were made. Architecture plays a key role in preserving culture through art, which is openly accessible to everyone who visits the place or even sees a photograph of it. The cultural data in the form of art on historic structures is in the most unaltered form, is the most reliable way of transferring data to future generations. The only right way to restore and preserve the age-old structures is to restore them using the same kind of material and technique that has been used to build them. Being the fundamental human technology in construction, lime has been efficiently superseded by cement for all the building works over a century. The knowledge of lime has been carelessly lost without being passed on to the next generations. Cement was invented in Britain in 1824 and the first introduced in India in 1904, and the commercial preparation began in 1914. Because of its quick setting and easy process, cement took over the construction industry. In the course of shift, we use lime or lime mortar has slowly faded away and completely forgotten. So the initial restoration works of heritage structures have been done using cement, which couldn't succeed. In our restoration works, we rebuild the forgotten forms with exactly the same material that was built, which is lime mortar, that dates back to many thousands of years as primary building material as old as the Phanigiri site, to Nalanda complex, to the restoration of Amapalli temple, which we are working on. As an architect for the restoration project, my chief job is to bring back what time, neglect, and ignorance has pushed into the background. But I've realized that it's not just buildings that are forgotten, it's systems, languages, values, ways of learning and thinking. Through sites like Nalanda and many across India, we are reminded that this country once led the world in knowledge, design, and education. Forgotten forms aren't just broken walls or ancient scripts. They're also the ideas we no longer prioritize. The slow techniques that made structures last long, the intricate craftsmanship, and the beauty of spaces built with purpose. These structures are still useful in today's time. We don't need to build huge multi-purpose cultural convention centers. Instead, we can restore and reuse the ancient structures that were indeed built for the very purpose. By restoring these forms, whether through architecture, research, or storytelling, we're not just preserving the past. We're making sure it continues to inspire the present and shape the future. Thank you.